So I want to take a quick step back and just describe what it means to be a near futurist. And I describe it simply as connecting what's emerging as possible, kind of new possibilities, with what's immediately practical for brands, for businesses, for organizations, and even for humans. And connecting possible with practical is really where this near future framework is focused.
Expanding possibilities, the mindset zone.
I'm your host, Ana Melikian, and my mission is to support individuals and organizations to increase their impact while avoiding burnout. If you want to work smarter, not harder, I can help you. If you want to go from burnout to full engagement, let's talk. Reach me at Ana, A-N-A, at mindset.zone. Yes, instead of .com, it's .zone. You can also access all the episode notes, links, and other amazing resources at mindset.zone. Today, our special guest is Neil Reading, and Neil is a keynote speaker, author, innovation architect, and near futurist. He has worked at the convergence of the digital and physical for decades and is an expert in spatial computing, virtual and augmented reality, and AI. He has delivered for clients including Visa, Nike, Cadillac, Verizon, Apple, Fidelity Investments, just to name a few of them. And as near futurist, Neil focuses on connecting what's possible with what's practical. Welcome back to the Mindset Zone, Neil.
Thank you so much, Anna. It's really great to be here again with you.
And now that artificial intelligence is in the news, in everybody's mind, I had to bring you back here to the Mindset Zone because you've been working with these things for decades. So I want your perspective here. And I want to start with one of your concepts that I think is fascinating and so needed at the present moment, that is that your near future framework. So can tell us a little bit about that.
Sure thing. So I want to take a quick step back and just describe what it means to be a near futurist. And I describe it simply as connecting what's emerging as possible, kind of new possibilities, with what's immediately practical for brands, for businesses, for organizations, and even for humans. And connecting possible with practical is really where this near future framework is focused. And what that looks like, just as a workshop for clients, when we start with something that tends to be a 3-week kind of workshop, or at least a 3-phase workshop, where the first phase is looking at the current practical state of the brand or business. What is the brand? What is the business model? How does it work? What are the participants currently? What are its challenges, areas of focus, budgets, and so on? Just the whole business model overview. And then with clients, we really roll up our sleeves and get actively engaged with emerging possibilities. And right now, from a technology perspective, this involves looking at a handful of AI tools, Gen AI tools, machine learning models, and so on, as well as spatial computing capabilities. So, as you mentioned, I've done a lot of work in VR and AR, and also with voice and sensors in physical spaces and so on. But AI and spatial computing are really the big umbrellas that we look at. And clients get very excited because often they haven't had the chance to use these technologies. So that's the second phase, into going deep into the possibilities. And the third is really connecting these dots, connecting what we've experienced together as new capabilities, new possibilities, with practical needs and opportunities at the level of the business. So connecting possible and practical. And then the output of this workshop is a set of hypotheses. Like, if we did X, we would expect business benefit Y or customer benefit Z. And these hypotheses are articulated and written in a clear way so they can be prototyped. They can be engaged as a follow-up project. Sometimes the prototyping is as simple as creating a focus group and exploring an idea. Sometimes it's building a piece of software and putting it on the web or on the internet and allowing people to interact with it. But these hypotheses are are the output, and they are very clear and actionable, which is really the problem that we're trying to solve. That traditional foresight and futurism are often visionary and good at predicting, but not very actionable in the immediate. And as a technologist who's really focused on getting things built, I want to really help clients get actionable about the near future.
I love this concept of the near future of practical and possible. So look at what we already have in the table that we can implement now. So it's possible and it's practical and it's going to solve a problem that we have. It's not just a theoretical thing. And I love that. And I want to ask you a little bit more about that first moment, because you say these three moments that you take them through. And the first moment, if I understand correctly, is a lot about where they are at the moment, their business model, and where they are at the moment, even what they already are using of AI or not using of AI. And in that first moment, because one thing now that I'm speaking about the human side of the AI. And one thing that I notice, I start my presentation with my avatar doing the intro. Instead of having the MC doing the intro, I have my own avatar video doing my intro. And then I ask, how do you feel to the audience? And what is emerging a lot is a mix of feelings of, oh, people, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. This is intriguing, interesting. But there is also, even sometimes in the same person, oh, it's a little bit icky, artificial. I don't know. I'm not sure. Do you find in that first phase when you are laying the foundation, laying the ground, checking where they are, also this mix of feelings in the companies?
I do. There's a lot of fear and trepidation. Some people use the term FUD, just fear, uncertainty, and doubt around AI, certainly. I've been working with technology for over 30 years, and it is moving more quickly now by far than I've ever seen technology move. And so it's totally understandable to feel overwhelmed and to feel the kind of emotions you're describing, Anna. I mean, icky, excited. I think people are thrilled and impressed, and excitement is a core response as well. But yes, there's a kind of like destabilization, or I've often said it feels like the ground is
Mm.
moving under our feet. Like there's a lot of questions that I know you've been exploring as well with your guests around if AI can do all these things. Like for decades, we thought, well, AI can certainly automate all kinds of things, and
Yes.
software can automate all kinds of mechanical things and rote tasks that we do, but it's not going to be creative, right? I mean, creativity is what separates humans from software, from technology. But I think the past couple of years, we've seen, oh, AI can be creative too, or it seems to be creative, right? And some people will say that's not really creativity. But in any case, it's impressive enough, the set of tools that we've seen, that arguably AI can be creative as well. So where does that leave us as humans, right? So I think that I guess that's just a little background. Like I get it, I understand it, and I think I just choose to be excited and optimistic that AI is challenging us to really look closely at what is it that makes us human? Where can we contribute value? How can we use these tools that are so powerful that they're starting to feel like peers, like participants in these same groups, these same ecosystems that we already operate in?
And that even brings more relevance to your work, in my opinion, because yes, all these changes, the acceleration of change, all these possibilities, also the dangers. And I like to say, we humans, we are the key to make sure that we put safeguards around the dangers and we explore more the possibilities. And your work is all about exploring the possibilities of these. What is demystifying in a way and implement in a way that we can see how can we apply these tools that we have at the moment to solve problems in a more effective way. And I will make sure that I put the link to our previous interview here in the mindset zone, because you have a very holistic view, ecosystem view, a systemic view of things that allows you to make sure that people, your clients, and you, when you work with them, your company, when you work with them, they also see the big picture. And I think that kind of dance between the big picture and the application now is more important than ever nowadays.
I think that's right. I use the term participant to refer to these technologies, particularly AIs, and particularly when we look to this emerging era of AI agents. People talk about the agentic era where AI can not just respond to prompts, not just be the form of a tool that is waiting for an input from a human and then will respond. That's what ChatGPT is. That's what Anthropic Claude is. That's what this current round of tools is, including the visual ones, Midjourney and Dolly and so on. But agents can, of course, as the term suggests, be given a higher level brief or directive and then just go off and take care of it, right? Like an example that's often used is my kid has a birthday party a month from now, and this is what he likes, and this is his age, and this is how many people, and just can you just go plan it? Go book
Yes.
the place, procure the food and drink, invite his friends, whatever, right? Simple example, but today we can't do that yet. But the technology very soon will be able to just do all these things and actually make the real world reservations and the real world physical gathering happen. And that's very exciting and very dangerous in a lot of ways.
Yes.
But it starts to feel to me like these AIs are becoming participants. They're like peers. If I'm on a team at a company or doing a project that requires a bunch of collaboration with other people, AIs can start to sort of sit alongside us, so to speak, and participate in these ways.
Absolutely. And that, because the best way, in my opinion, to use tools like ChatGTP is that it's a chat. It's not just us putting a prompt, getting the response, and then go from the. No, that is just the beginning. It's the interaction with the machine that I think is so interesting, that we have that copy editor there with us, that we can use it, can ask for help at any time. That is so powerful. And what you are describing is to have that executive assistant with us at any time. But even with an executive assistant, if we are lucky enough to have one, there is a period of time that we have to teach the executive assistant what we really want, what we really mean, and they have to learn with us. And yes, I see that in the near future, that the AI can do a lot of that, but there will be hiccups, but there will be incredible automations there too, that I think is fascinating.
Yeah, I agree. One of the things I actually was looking forward to for many years, for some reason, when I first got my first pair of Apple AirPods, I had this idea that I would be able to go around the city. I live in New York, just go around the city and be having a conversation with an AI like Siri all day long.
Mhm.
It took many years for this to actually show up, but maybe 6 months ago, I'm forgetting exactly when, ChatGPT's mobile app has made this possible where I can actually have an open conversation back and forth with ChatGPT. And it's far from perfect. And anyone who saw OpenAI's recent release of GPT 4.0, they showcased some slightly glitchy demos. And of course, since then, there's been the whole sort of media event around using a voice that sounded almost exactly like Scarlett Johansson's
Yes,
voice in Her and Sam Altman's reference to the movie Her. And they're clearly, that's the model
inspiration.
that they're, that's the inspiration. That's the model they're shooting for. And for many of us, it was an inspiring vision for AI and also a cautionary tale in certain ways. But anyway, so the more recent capabilities that OpenAI has showcased, I think are getting much closer even to supporting that kind of all day conversation where you really can feel like an AI is a teammate, like you said, an executive assistant, and even maybe we can just say a very high level, a very capable assistant or collaborator or partner. I think of these tools as partners, thought partners, especially. So,
I love that. And that takes us to another area that I know that you spend a lot of time thinking and speaking about. That is, okay, if this AI can become this assistant, this partner for us to brainstorm ideas, for helping us implement things, for setting up a birthday party of our kiddos, where is starting to be this kind of, okay, what is real and what is not real? What can we develop a real friendship with AI? Can we then, if we move from one company to the other and we put all that knowledge in a bot chat that is our partner, then what is the, can we take it with us since we did so much work to build and to create that relationship, or the company owns it? So there is very interesting things, but let's focus on the part of the nature of reality, because I know that this is something that you've been speaking about.
yes. So, in the current talk that I've been giving since I debuted at South by Southwest a couple months ago, I kind of weave this narrative where I try to take the audience on a journey of reflecting on, as you say, the nature of reality. And that sounds like a very heady philosophical topic for a technologist to be speaking about. But I really start with quantum mechanics and how quantum mechanics has been showing us and showing, quantum theorists over decades that there's the observer effect, right? Which is that, I mean, we've kind of known this for 100 years, even though we haven't really integrated it into our common sense, but that certainly at the elementary particle level and potentially at even larger macro levels, observing or interacting with a system or a particle or an object impacts its state. I quote a few quantum theorists in my talk where they say that we live in a participatory universe, that our actions and interactions even co-create reality essentially. I talk about how neuroscience points to the ways in which what we're seeing or sensing when we interact with the world, when we observe the world, is not the world as it is, but it's actually a story told us by our brains that takes as input these sensory data and then creates what neuroscientists will call a story sometimes, but it's essentially it's taking that input and weaving it into something that kind of makes sense to us. And of course, psychedelic experience and many spiritual traditions, and there are lots of other aspects of human activity that point to and support the idea that reality is not this separate set of people, places, and things. Reality is something that we co create. And there's more to it than that. But the reason why I get into this aspect of the talk is because there's so much resignation in the world. There's so much of like, it is what it is. That's how it's always been done. We can't do it that way. It's not possible. And we live as if in our businesses, in our daily lives, at the level of society and humanity, so much of us live as if reality is just this separate thing that we don't create. And I see across many different domains of human activity this awakening into the realization that actually what quantum mechanics and what neuroscience and these other realms of human activity and exploration are telling us that is that no, we create reality as we go through the world and we co-create it with each other, and these constraints that we imagine exist are mostly made up. And so my intention as a consultant, certainly if I narrow it down to the work that I'm doing as a near futurist with brands and businesses, it's really to just get people present to and get into this mindset of being freed up to imagine new realities. Now, to connect that with AI as you're prompting, um, what does AI and spatial computing have to do with these things, right? It's a little easier to do this with visual examples. So I'd refer people to the video of my talk. So the idea of agents or even the AI tools that we've had for the last year and a half, almost 2 years now with Midjourney and Dolly and so on, being able to make a statement, type a prompt in English in a natural language, and then get something very quickly that visually represents this, or as a video represents this, or a video sort of text to video
Yes.
tools. We've all seen Sora. Most of us don't have our hands on it yet from OpenAI, but being able to create cinematic quality videos from just a prompt is getting very, very close to being able to declare in language a kind of reality that just shows up. And then with spatial computing, there's not just the ability, or we can take that ability to type a description of a reality, of a visual scene. I use the example in my talk of Sora's like 30-year-old astronaut exploring some desert scene with a spaceship, blah, blah, blah. That was one of the examples they had. But you can take that further, and I showcase an example from Blockade Labs where you can type a prompt that describes a physical building or interior of a building, and then it will create that as a 3D model that you can load into a game engine like Unity or Unreal. If you don't know what those are how people build immersive VR
Yes.
simulations, experiences. But there's a very short path now between typing a description, and I use the example of a Ecolux villa on the Portuguese coast,
Yes.
which is something I daydream about, right? Maybe you have connection with that as well. But just saying, I want to be in this space. And a few seconds later, you get this 3D model that you can then load into a headset and just be in that space. And so this really feels to me like creating reality, creating at least the reality of our experience in a way that is very, very direct. And so showcasing this in my talk and then with clients, I really want to drive home the point that we're verging on being able to, moment to moment, hour to hour, determine the realities that we experience with our senses. And just like narrative fiction, cinema, movies have gotten so compelling that we feel like we're living in these worlds, I think making these worlds immersive in 3D, I mean, we're going to really shift our consciousness, I think, in powerful ways. And I think that's really, really important because I feel like without massive mindset shifts, consciousness shifts about what's possible, we're not going to solve the enormous challenges that we have as humans on this planet. We've got some really, really tough challenges to solve. And I think we need to free ourselves up to really imagine beyond what we think is possible. So,
I love, and again, loads of richness here. And I love, and let me apply your near future perspective here, because I think for the immediately that is practical, is possible, is using the technology for problem solving. For instance, I think you referred this in your talk. There is a problem in an engine of airplane, and you don't have the technician, that the engineer that specializes there locally, but that information can be transmitted to where the person is, and they can have the put the 3D goggles and have the engine with the problem in front of them in a three-dimensional way, and be able to much faster to solve that mechanical problem and accelerating the resolution of that challenge. Or I can imagine for training, even the training of doctors or airplane pilots, the simulate. So all of this that are technologies that in the very near future can have very important practical implications in a good way. And at the same time, there is that, okay, then it's important to have this philosophical conversation and think about, okay, are we dreaming? Is the thing when we are dreaming, things seem real. Otherwise, we will not have nightmares. Uh, and or if we think about movies like The Matrix. So how do we know what? But is this conversation and seeing this as a collaboration, as a co-creation, that we have um, some a important role about, and it's not just one person, because it's the co-creation of a culture that filters the way that we see and perceive reality. Is a group thing, and it's so fascinating to be aware of all that and be able to have conversations about it, and how can we use that as a force for good?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, just to add to what you're saying, I think there's once we come into the awareness that we can co-create reality, we start to see that we already are. Everything about our experience. I mean, yes, we can say that, like right now, I'm looking outside and it's sunny and the temperature is whatever it is. And maybe I didn't create that, right? There's some kind of
There are physical
objective,
limitations
yeah.
out there. Physical still
Yeah.
works. The apples are still falling from the trees.
Yes. I mean, there are things that are happening that, we could say are maybe separate from us. But my experience, like, I could be sad and it's sunny. I could be happy when it's rainy. I could be outside doing whatever I want to do, regardless of the temperature. Um, I could. What's most important is sort of how I think about and relate to, and this sort of the story I tell myself about these situations or these phenomena in the world. I mean, and we really live inside the stories that we tell ourselves and each other. And once we start seeing the world through this lens of, we're creating our realities, we're creating our experiences by virtue of the stories that we tell ourselves and each other, then it becomes so important. I mean, this is your whole focus, right? With mindset,
Yeah.
it's like your mindset is determines the what you're able to do and what you're not able to do. It determines like who's drawn to you and who's not, or determines so much about your experience in the world. And mindset and narrative or story, I think, are very similar.
Yeah. And using your words, we are partners in this co creation, and understanding our power as partners of the co-creation. And one of the other partners in the co-creation is Newton laws of gravity and other laws that are absolutely there, but we are still partners in this co-creation work, and is really empowering, and at the same time can be scary for certain people, and at the same time I think allow us to be more agents of positive change in the world, if we get this together, to be able to have a conversation and co-create a future that is a better future for everybody.
No, absolutely. We have to imagine that it's possible before we're going to start to take action. I think there's a real world impact of how we think, the mindset we're in, the stories that we tell ourselves moment to moment. We're constantly telling
Yeah.
ourselves stories. And I think on reflection, people will realize this is true. You get up in the morning and you're telling yourself stuff like, I don't like this. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I don't like today. It's Monday, blah, blah, blah. I mean, all day long. And those really impact like what we're able to do. And similarly, if at the level of humanity on the planet, like, will we stop fighting each other ever? Will we stop destroying things? Will we figure out how to solve climate?
Yeah.
Will we, just to name a few top of mind major challenges, will we solve political polarization? Like, how can we come together even as Americans, never mind humans, right? I mean, so we have to imagine it's possible. We have to be able to envision um, these scenarios so that we can take action on them. And it's just so important that people are not resigned to the status quo, in my mind. And as someone working on innovation, I just wanted to connect it with this. When you're looking at an existing business or business model and thinking about how can it evolve to prevent disruption, respond to a competitive threat, um, just maintain its relevance and increase the value that it has to its customers and business partners and so on, these principles still apply, right? You want to come together, and we do everything we can in our workshops with clients to kind of free our minds to be able to imagine how these new possibilities that we see emerging all around us from AI, from spatial computing, from other technologies, um, can enhance the current practical state of a business. So it's all connected.
Love that. It's all connected. You always say that, and it's so true. So, where people can go to learn more about you and to keep this conversation going with you?
Sure. So neilredding.com, neilredding.com is really my thought leadership site. So you'll find information about me, my speaking, some videos of talks, including my recent South by Southwest talk and other conferences I've been speaking at, as well as links to some articles. And that really plus my LinkedIn profile, and we can probably provide links to both of
Yes,
these. Um,
absolutely.
I'm quite active on LinkedIn, and I have a new site for Reading Futures that'll be coming soon. There's a lot more content. So those are the two main ways.
So, I will make sure that those are in the show notes. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Anna.
My pleasure.
Expanding possibilities, the mindset zone.
Thank you for listening. And remember to follow this podcast. And if you're listening in Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. That really helps us spread the word about the Mindset Zone. Also visit mindset.zone. Yes, instead of .com is .zone. There you can find amazing resources and more information about my speaking and how I support purpose-driven individuals and organizations increase their impact while preventing burnout. As always, I'm so grateful that you are here. Expand what's possible for you, for the ones around you, for the world.